Hey everyone, welcome to the Communications Transform podcast. I'm your host, Randy Kassar, and today we're interviewing Julie Morgenstern, who's an organizing and productivity consultant, speaker, and New York Times bestselling author. She's written amazing books, one called Time to Parent Organizing Your Life to Bring Out the Best in Your Child and You, and Never Check Your Email in the Morning. She provides some amazing insight to help your business as well as you individually. She also answers some of our listeners' questions. So make sure to tune in. And if you have any questions after the show, always tweet us at 8x8 on Twitter. Or make sure to stay tuned till the very end to learn how you can get in contact with Julie for your business. Take care and enjoy the podcast. So we're really excited to talk to you today. We really want to focus on two sides of productivity and organization. One is on the business side and one is on the individual side. And so to start off, let's talk about the business and really how can businesses benefit from being organized and productive. Of course, that's a no-brainer. They can, and it'll help their business results. Um, but the first question that I have that I kind of got from the audience is, where do businesses start when it comes to creating a culture of organization and productivity?
Yeah, I think there is a culture of time or a culture of productivity that is present in every organization. And it's usually evolves unconsciously. It just sort of happens
Right.
because of the way people work or the way they're reacting to each other. And it's not necessarily conscious. And that culture, when it's designed or emerges unconsciously, usually is not exactly reflecting of the true values of the leaders of the business. So the first step is to actually step back and define your values around time. And the key areas to think about are what is our culture around? There's sort of, I think, like five levers of time culture. One
Okay.
is meetings. What's
Meaning.
our culture of meetings? Are we meeting heavy? Do we just invite everybody? Do we show up prepared? Do we start on time? Do we actually achieve anything? Is it back to back, or are we more thoughtful? So why do we meet? How do we meet? For how long? Who's in the room? And how do we use meetings to produce results? That's a value. So
It's really
meetings
important.
is so important. And I think that's a really, for lack of a better term, it's sort of a sloppy area in most companies. People just sort of like meet,
Yeah.
and they meet for everything, and people don't know who should come and who shouldn't, and people resent being at meetings that don't achieve anything, but they're afraid of not being at the meeting because maybe I should show my face there. So
Yeah.
it's a very sort of charged area. And if you think about how much money and time meetings actually cost, if you calculate, you have 10 people in a meeting at an average salary of $75,000, do the math on, what is a 2-hour meeting with 10
Yeah.
people at $75,000 hourly? That's an expensive meeting. And if it starts late and ends without a clear plan of action, what it was like money right down the drain. It's just
Totally.
right. So that happens. And so you want to think about uh, what is the culture of meetings? That's one.
Yeah.
I think the second is a culture of interruptions, right? Because we now
Interesting.
we work in mostly both open work plans have just become the norm,
Yeah.
um, and a lot of remote workers. And so either people are always interrupting each other or can't reach each other at all. And what is our value around both collaboration and thinking time?
Hmm.
Do we want people to just always be interacting, or do we want people to balance their time between interacting and heads down and doing their
And
work?
doing, yeah, totally. Yeah,
Right?
'cause that's definitely a challenge for a lot of people. It's like, I've been in meetings all day. When have I had time to do my job?
That's exactly right. It's the biggest complaint in today's world of work is there is no time to think during the workday. There's
Wow.
no time to think. There's no, and leaders of companies say, I want my people to spend more time thinking ahead and being strategic and being innovative and breaking into new markets and being proactive. That's what we want. But they have not created a culture that creates the space or the expectation of time to think during the workday.
Yeah.
So everybody does it at night and on the weekends when they're exhausted. when they're kind of brain fried, when they're not efficient, and it steals from their ability to have a personal life. And that's not a sustainable model. So, any leader who wants to really look at the culture of time in their company, ask yourself, what is our values around thinking time and interruptions? And can we shape that? Can we create, I don't know, a company schedule? Mornings are for quiet time and afternoon is for interacting.
Yeah. Yeah. And I've seen a few companies say, okay, Wednesdays is no meeting Wednesday,
Yeah.
or we're going to have 15-minute meetings and that's it.
Yeah.
Um,
But what's really interesting, Randy, is that there's really three types of things people have to fit, no matter what their job is, no matter what the department, no matter where they are in the food chain.
sure.
There's three broad categories of things every worker needs to fit into their workday. It's some combination of meetings, thinking time. It's head down doing work, writing,
Right.
the financial department figuring out the spreadsheets, the HR department figuring out the strategic plan for hiring, etc. So there's what I would call legato work, thinking work.
Mhm.
And then there's staccato work, which is all the like, hey, Randy, can you take a look at this thing that I'm working on and give me your input? Or it's all the interrupted, quick stuff. So
Yeah.
if you think staccato, legato, and meetings, that's three kinds of things. Companies at the top can shape their day, shape their schedules to accommodate all of that. That's time leadership. That's what I call time leadership.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow. That's definitely something that you don't hear too much about, right? And I think it's something that needs to happen, right?
It needs to happen. I think in the like 50 years ago, if leaders at an organization were getting involved with how people were getting their work done, it was called micromanagement.
Yeah.
But today, that is not micromanagement. That is actually harnessing the talent that your greatest resource, you're spending a fortune on people. And if you don't actually, it's in these big communal spaces, create a communal sort of set of norms or protocols around meetings, around thinking time, around interactive time, you're just losing probably 60% of your spend, if not more.
Wow.
People just don't get any work done.
Yeah. So speaking of numbers, are there any studies that you've come across that talk about improving organization productivity or time lost, or is there something that you've
There's
seen?
so many. I mean, there's like so many different studies. There's so many different aspects of it. I think one of the ones that most people can really relate to is around batch processing email. Email. Because email and our constant connectedness to emails and screens really steals focus and time and also the ability to think, right? And studies have shown that if people, instead of continuously processing email all day long, they batch process. It means you designate certain times when you are going to fully open up that email box, respond, give it your undivided attention, then you close it down, and then you do something different. Meet with somebody and be fully present. Work on a document, be fully present. Then you come back into the email. It could be 5 times a day. It could be 3 times a day. When you batch process email, you get through as many emails in less time, less total time than if you continuously processed all day long.
Wow.
That's
It's just
powerful.
it is. It is. I mean, I'm laughing and like you're just going through my life right now. So I
Yeah.
mean, I think it happens in a lot of different places. I've been in the industry for was it since '93. I will say I've been sitting in a cubicle since '93. So it's been kind of eye opening to go from job to job, and haven't really thought about the side of the business. And I've had jobs where I've said, okay, I'm going to be taking a look at what my tasks are for the day, and how I spend my time, and how we kind of move things around. But one is at a higher level. I've never had a company where they said, okay, uh, this is the culture, right? Culture has never really been tied to time or
No,
productivity. So
no,
that's
it's new.
interesting.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's not really, it's a fact, but it's not really talked about much.
Yeah.
And
So
it exists. It
yeah.
exists. And that Also on the time culture, time leaders, the leaders of an organization, if they want to organize and shape the culture, the next thing is what is our email response time? And to establish that very clearly. Like we expect emails to be responded to within 2 hours, by end of day, within 24 hours. What
Yeah.
is and if you shape that from the top and you're explicit, it gives people permission to not continuously check their email.
Yeah.
But if you don't tell them, everyone's going to be like, if I'm off for 5 minutes, somebody's like, "Did you get my email?" They text me. They come to my desk. Did you get my text?
Yeah.
So you have to set sort of reasonable response times from the
Totally.
top.
Yeah. I mean, these days you have multiple different channels, right? You have your email, your chat, your phone, uh, snail mail. People still send letters. I mean, there's so many different ways.
Yeah.
So it's definitely tough. I mean, I can see when it first started where the response time was super quick was when the Blackberries came out and you saw that red blinking light and
Yeah.
you just had to check it.
Yeah. And a lot of it is our own, like we create the culture just by unconsciously, like we want to be quicker. It's like, wow, it's instant. So since it came, then I must respond. But then once you respond to people instantly, then you set the expectation that you're always respond at the drop of a hat, which trains them. They can leave things to the last minute and you'll always respond, which keeps you trapped.
Yeah, totally.
Because they're just sending me stuff. They want the answer right now. Well, you set that expectation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So one of the areas that we focus on at 8x8 is contact centers, and we work with a lot of different call centers and contact centers, and it's a challenging job in terms of keeping the agents motivated. It's a hard job getting those calls, and whether it's a poor experience, and you just have to kind of turn that around to a positive experience. I mean, what are your thoughts on whether it's call center agents or just employees in general on keeping them motivated and productive?
I mean, there's a lot of different aspects to this. I think if we go specifically with call center agents, you're talking about people whose whole job is to basically have a headphone and answer and deal with people all day long.
Yeah.
So let's just talk about that particular kind of, what are the stresses and the challenges of a job like that? It's hard to be at your best if, when you're interacting with customers all day long. It's so people intensive and you're dealing with people who can be frustrated.
Yeah.
You're solving problems. It's kind of, in a way, one dimensional. It's kind of an auditory only input, which can be, you can kind of lose, it's like you glaze over, your ears glaze over, your eye, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So how do you keep them motivated? Sort of recognize what the challenges are. And I think maybe you have to give people and train people to figure out their capacity, how frequently they need to take breaks and what they do on those breaks. Do they get up? Do they physically move? Do you have a dance break, once every 2 hours where
Yeah.
music goes on, everybody can stand up out of their chair and get the energy going, or musical chairs. It's a stagnant job in a lot of ways. So what do you do to help people keep the energy flowing and stay in the game? And also to really, I think, train people who are in such people intensive fields how to recharge in their time off.
Yeah.
And I think when you're in my experience as a coach, time management coach, when people are in very customer service, people intense jobs, they need to kind of build in a little transition space between work and home that is not so people focused, but is recharging their own batteries, listening to music or going for a walk or go to the gym in between, but take some me time to recharge before you then have to go and give to your family or to give to other people. I have a little formula that I train people on called the PEP formula, PEP, for how to plan your time off in a way that recharges you. If you think about 3 different components of our personal time that recharge us, there's anything related to the physical health, like sleep, exercise, meditation. It's just sort of good food, care and feeding of the body. E is escapes, and that's like your hobbies or your passions or the things that the minute you do them, you're just absorbed in it, and you just sort of, I'm not thinking about
Yeah,
work, I'm not thinking about, I'm there. Like
totally.
it has something like that. And then the third is people, which is spending time with people who recharge you, and those are meaningful relationships. In a people intensive job, you usually have to go to physical health or escapes before you then deal with people in your
Yeah.
personal life. And that helps keep you motivated and fresh.
Because you've been interacting with those people they don't even know all day long, right? And then
Oh yeah. And then it
yeah,
was like, now people want to tell me their problems when I get home. Oh my
yeah.
God.
No way. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, for me, the escape part for me would be running. That's been a passion of mine, and so that's when I go out, whether it's with my wife or not. Um, but that's where I can. That's my personal therapy. I mean, I can.
Yeah.
I don't listen to music at all when I go out.
Right.
I'm thinking in my head like, what's going on? What did I do this week? What's happening with my kids? And I think that's. I think everyone has that escape, right?
Everyone has or should have.
Should have, right?
I,
It's hard. It's
and
hard to get to it.
it's hard to get to it, but I think to go the distance when you're trying to balance doing really well at work and doing well in your personal life, if there were one advice that I would give people is figure out what that personal grounding activity is that makes you feel like you. That's your personal meditation, and build that in either every day or, like 20 minutes or less every day or a couple of hours once a week. It will transform your ability to perform at work and perform in your personal life
Yeah,
with your family. It's so critical to have that me time. And
totally.
it doesn't have to be a lot of time.
It should be. No, yeah, I'm in totally agreement with that, and it's something that even my wife and I are trying to figure out. Is like, okay, she has right now is she's training for a half marathon. That's she goes out. That's her time. And right now I'm going to an Orange Theory class, and that's kind of my time. So it's interesting. So
Yeah.
I wanted to segue over to, and we were talking about the past few minutes is on the individual side. First we talked about the business side of things.
Yeah.
That was really helpful, especially the culture part. And I thought it would be interesting to. Got some questions from our listening audience, and I was just going to talk about a couple of them. And this first one is family related, right? You wrote a book called Time to Parent, which I recommend to everybody, whether it's the audiobook or um, the hard copy or the ebook, whatever it might be. It's on Amazon, correct?
Yes. Yes.
Awesome. So this one is kind of related to it. So this gentleman, a coworker, Jeremy from San Diego, he talked about traditional school schedules don't exactly align with our workday. What are some tips for working professionals to excel both professionally and as parents beyond paying for after-school care?
That's a great question. Um, so what I learned when I did this book is I did some research into the field of human development to find out the answer to the question I did not know as an organizing expert. I'm an organizing and time management expert, but I didn't know how much time kids need
Yeah.
to feel loved and secure, because that's really what every parent is trying to deliver or feels compelled to deliver or feels like they're falling short on all the time. Like,
Yeah.
I'm not giving my kids enough time to show them that I love them and give them that sense of security. So I was like, well, how much time is that? Like, how much time do kids really need? And I spent 8 years diving into the research to try to find the answer to that question. It was not easy to find.
Yeah.
Like, most experts don't want to tell you. They're like, well, it depends on the kid. And I was like, nope, I want to
Yeah.
know. So give me the edges of this. So here's what I found out, and it'll give the answer to your listener's question. So children thrive on short bursts of like five to 15 minutes at a time
Uh-huh.
of truly undivided attention delivered consistently, not big blocks of time delivered occasionally. And by consistent, and that's because kids have short attention spans. They're like,
Right.
Kids, they say like a minute for every age of life. They, 5 minutes for a 5-year-old, 15 minutes for a 15-year-old.
So true. Yeah.
So true. So what does the consistently part mean? How do you build that in as a parent? So think about the 5 transition points in your kid's day. There are 5 transitions in every kid's day. There's when they first wake up,
Mm-hmm.
when you depart, like separate at the beginning of the day. They go to school, you go to work. That's a transition.
Right.
You reunite when they get out of school, or when they get out of school is a transition point,
Mm-hmm.
really.
Yep.
There's dinner and bedtime. 5 transition points. If you can be there, now hear me out, don't panic yet. Each one of those, if at every one of the transition points, you take the first 5 minutes or 3 minutes or 8 minutes to give your kid that undivided attention, that is the consistency part that they can rely. Like when they wake up, you're like, hey, how'd you sleep, buddy? Not hurry up, let's go, we're late.
Yeah. Yeah.
So for a working parent, first of all, recognize you don't have to don't feel bad that you're working all day. But if you're not there when they are done with school, if they're old enough to either have a device or they're getting picked up by a babysitter or somebody who does have a device, set your cell phone alarm to FaceTime. Use technology to just FaceTime your kid for the first 5 minutes at that transition point where you
Yeah.
can say, hey, how was school? What happened? Where are you going next? You're looking forward to it. I'll see you at dinner. And you can do that without being physically present.
Right.
You can do that even if you're a traveling parent. You can set your alarm and be there when they wake up in the morning. You can do it.
Yeah, and that helps. I mean, I've seen it firsthand where um, they just want to hear from you, right? They just need someone to talk to listen to that they're familiar with, right? Consistency, I think, is key for them.
Yeah, it's consistency. Then they do it. Those little anchor points. It's like their world is like being on an exotic vacation all day long, right? Like everything is new to kids. They are like what it's like for you or me to like go to some foreign lands and you're just so stimulated all the time. Like, oh my God, new food, new sights, new sounds. It's exhausting,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
For
yeah,
us.
yeah.
So that's what kids every day is like. Every day is that new to them. So these transition points are their sort of like landing pads. And if there's somebody familiar, their mom, their dad, their caretaker who's like, hey, how you doing?
Yeah,
It allows them to reset and then they can go out and be on their adventures again.
that's awesome. Great advice. All right, we'll get to a few more questions
Yep.
from our listening audience a little later. Let's go on to a couple other prepared questions that we had. So the question around, remote working is definitely a norm these days. We have a quite large audience, a large employee base here that are remote workers, as well as other companies. And also there's the freelance kind of gig economy where there's a lot of freelancers out there. So from your perspective, is productivity different from working at an office versus home? That's
Uh,
the first question.
oh yeah, 100% so. And I think there are different challenges in each and to each. So I think when you're in if you're working in an office, what you often have is so many interruptions all the time and so many distractions that it can be very hard to get anything done. On the other hand, it can be very energizing because you're not isolated and you're like catch other people's energy. You're separate from you have a transition between work and home, and however long that commute is can be an opportunity to like mentally switch.
Mhm.
When you work from home, one advantage is you have the world's shortest commute, right?
Of course,
Which
yeah.
is great. There's no time wasted, like, and if in on the highway, on the freeway, and so. But that can also be hard because you don't always. It's not so easy to switch gears. So while you're working, you're also like jumping up to do a load of laundry, put food in the oven, somebody
Answer the
stop
door.
price,
Yeah,
get kids, blah 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 blah.
yeah,
And the lack of boundaries can really keep you from ever feeling productive. So then you're never able to turn work off for sure because like all day long you weren't exactly focused on work. Then when it's after school and evening time, you feel like you didn't get enough done. So now you're not really in your family time and you're doing work. So the main thing I think for when you work from home is to create boundaries. You should
you have
have very
physical boundaries.
both physical
Okay.
boundaries and schedule boundaries. Technology will allow you to work anywhere in your house you want. don't do it. Pick a workspace. Even though remote computers and all that digital, fine, great wireless technology, but you should associate one space with your work so that you mentally go to work. You go to that desk, you
Yeah.
go to that room, and now you're in your work mode. You should get dressed for work. Do not work in your pajamas. I don't think it's a good idea.
No.
Like, because you're not really like, the clothes sort of make you go, okay, now it's time to be like focused and energetic and
Totally.
all about business. So that's also a physical.
Yeah.
And then I think time, set your schedule. And if you're saving time on a commute, then pour some of that into your workday and some of that into your personal time. Maybe you get to go to the gym, whereas your colleagues who have to commute 90 minutes, it's harder for them to find the time for the gym, but you
Yeah.
can. But I think you should have clear work hours, and go into work and then leave work. And the last thing I'll tell you for boundaries, which a lot of my clients do, I advise very often, if you work from home, after your work hours are done,
Okay.
change your clothes, leave your house, go for a walk, and then come back in as though you're coming home.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that can help you kind of clear your mind and kind of
Yep.
do that switch, right?
Do that switch. Exactly.
Yeah. All right. Well, that's great. Let's see. Let's go on to another question. This comes from a listener in San Jose. What's the one or two key things you would want working parents to keep in mind when considering how to manage both their families and their bosses?
Wow. The one thing, manage both their families and their bosses. I would say release the guilt.
Okay.
I think with your bosses, when working parents very often feel guilty that they are not pulling their weight because they need to leave every day at 5 sharp to go pick up the kids or have dinner, or that they have to compensate, and that makes them feel like they can never sort of be confident that they're like, I've done my job. They're
Yeah.
always sort of in the hole mentally, right?
Yeah.
And I think the truth is, working parents, and I have 30 years of doing this, working parents are the most productive people in the workplace because they have that heart out and they are like, they do not surrender to stupid interruptions. They don't waste time. They get their work done. And so don't feel guilty. You are more productive and more focused than most people. And people who don't have that heart out, work expands to fit the time allotted, and work also contracts to fit the time available. So don't feel guilty if you're really focused on your work and you're producing results. Release that and don't feel bad with your boss. Same is true at home. Because you're a working parent, how to manage your family, don't feel guilty for working.
Yeah.
There's no study, and there have been many done, that has ever determined that working is bad for kids. And in fact, what studies have found, it's not whether we work that has an impact on kids. It's how we feel about our work that has the impact on our kids.
That's interesting perspective. That's true, because they see that firsthand. They know the real you, right?
They Yes, and also, but here's the interesting thing. Parents, when they feel guilty for working, even if they love their job, the guilt makes them say to their kids, I hate that I have to work. I wish I didn't have to work, but I have to pay for your school, or to pay for your toys, or
Yeah.
to pay for this house that we live in. And that gives kids the inadvertent message that, like, oh my God, my parents hate their job, but they're only doing it because of me. And there was a study done called Ask the Children by Ellen Galinsky. Everybody should look this study up.
Okay.
Where she was like, everyone, like, let's find out from the kids if kids don't want their parents to work. And that's what she found out. It's that they don't mind if you work. They want you to love your work. They just don't want you to love your work more than you love them. So love your work and love your kids even more.
Yeah.
Don't say you hate your job unless you really hate your job.
Then change.
And then get another job.
Yeah, very true. All right. I think what we'll do right now is go to some rapid fire to kind of get to know you and what your where you've come from and how you've kind of come up with this passion for organization and productivity. So we have a few rapid fire questions, and really short responses as much as you can. So the first question that we have, well, first of all, are you ready for the?
I think I'm ready.
All right. Okay. We'll try not to stump you.
Okay.
All right. So first one, idol growing up.
My idol growing up, I think, was Gene Kelly, the dancer. I just loved that man. I loved his moves. He was like of the people. He was so cool. I was a dancer, and I just loved Gene Kelly.
That's awesome. He's awesome. So next one, mentor or motivation that you have right now.
I think both, in a funny way, my mentors, my motivation is really my clients and the people that I speak to. I mean, people are just so, people are really trying to do great things with their lives, with their jobs, with their personal lives. Everybody wants to make a great contribution, have a good life. And that motivates me to like provide solutions. I just really, as long as I've been in this business, I still feel motivated to tame the chaos in people's lives
Yeah.
so that they're free to make their unique contribution. It's the same driving force as when I started the business. Keeps me going.
That's
Yeah.
a good mission. One tip that you have for making a productive meeting?
Announce the outcome of the meeting at the top of the meeting. Say before at the meeting starts, what we want to walk away from this meeting with is X.
X.
A decision, 3 ideas, agreement that everybody understands the new policy. What do you want to walk away with? If you do that, it keeps everybody focused.
Great. That's an awesome one. So I've been told by one of our listeners, Morgenstern in New York is a famous ice cream place. I've never been. So first of all, have you been there yourself?
I have not. I have been by. I'm always like, oh, Morgenstern's ice cream. We are not related.
You're not related.
I see my name on an ice cream shop. Yes.
So what's your favorite ice cream?
All-time favorite ice cream, mint chocolate chip.
It's like my son. He loves mint chocolate chip. No one else in the family does. Only him. That's awesome. All right, and our last one, since we're doing this is a podcast, audio podcast, as well as a video meeting. If you could do a video meeting with 3 people, dead or alive, who would it be? I would assume Gene Kelly would be one of them.
You bet. Gene Kelly's on the list.
Yeah.
I would say Eleanor Roosevelt, Gene Kelly, and Michelle Obama.
That would be an amazing conversation.
Wouldn't that be so interesting?
It would be, yeah. I love that.
Yeah.
Well, cool. Well, thank you for your time. This has been awesome. So I want to give you some airtime so people can learn more how to contact you and get in contact with you. So share with us the best way to reach you and what you got coming out in the next few months.
Yeah, sure. So my website is juliemorgenstern.com and invite you to come and poke around. I'd say that probably for this listening audience, just to be aware that what we do is productivity training and workshops and coaching clinics that that actually help transform the culture of time at companies. So anybody who is interested in that, we are excellent at what we do. We have very innovative and very effective content. We do 3 half-day workshops on individual, team, and work-life balance issues. And just come and check us out. And there's a contact us page, and I'd love to have a conversation.
Awesome. And then in terms of social handles, you're on LinkedIn. I know that. That's how I reached out to you originally. Are you on Twitter as well?
On Twitter as well. It's Julie Morgenstern, missing the last E because they didn't give me enough characters. So it's at Julie Morgenstern, TRN at the end. Okay. Also on Instagram, Julie Morgenstern, and on Facebook.
Okay. Awesome. Well, we'll put all these links in the show notes so everybody can have direct access to them. Again, thank you for your time. This has been super helpful, not only for me, but for our listening audience. And we can't wait to really to reconnect with you perhaps next year.
Okay.
Around the same time, because this is a really busy time of the year for everybody as we get into the holidays. So it should be interesting.
Yeah, it's a good time to be thinking about this for end of year wrap up and planning to start the new year with new time management and organizing goals for your company and for yourself.
Definitely. All right. Well, thanks again. Talk to you
Thanks,
soon.
Randy. Thank
Yeah,
you.
thanks.
Bye.